Welcome to the DevReady Podcast. So today I have Kerry Boulton joining me. Welcome, Kerry. I'll let you introduce yourself so I don't wreck that for you.
Terrific. Thanks very much, Anthony. Well, my introduction is that I'm a long-time business owner, having had an opportunity many years ago to do a management buyout of a company that I was general manager for, which was a division of a public company. It was called Main Nicholas, and not too many people these days even remember Main Nicholas unless you're of my baby boomer vintage. So I was in a position where the Main Nicholas looked strategically ahead and said, well, what do we want to do with this business and a number of other businesses, because flavour of the month back then was to be a conglomerate. So being a conglomerate of a whole lot of disparate types of businesses, they figured, well, we don't want to be that anymore. And looking ahead, they wanted to be in the health industry. So they divested of a lot of different businesses. So as I said, I was general manager at the time, and I had the opportunity to buy the business. I had 86 staff and 5 offices around Australia, 120 international agents, so it was a pretty big business. And and since then I've gone with my husband and I, we've had 4 different businesses, and these days I'm talking to people very much around exit strategies and exit planning and understanding the end game. But I'm going to go right back there because that was when I first learned about having an exit plan and having an exit strategy. And I was, when you're in a corporate, you've got no idea about how to write a business plan to get money. You've got no clue whatsoever. Yep. And my husband and I at the time, having the opportunity to buy the business, didn't know what to do. Anyway, I found this book advertised, and look, I still have it. It's called Business Plans That Win Dollars, and it was written by Stanley Rich and David Gumpert from MIT. So sent off for the book. Back in those days, clip the coupon out, fill in your credit card details, and off it went, and waited for the book to arrive. And when it did, I read the book cover to cover in 24 hours, and I actually wrote my plan by the book because we had to go out and raise the money. And I had a very dear friend and mentor who said to me, Kerry, you write the plan. If you can convince me, I'll help you get the money together. And so the best thing about this book was that it taught me that I had to have an end game. I had to have an exit strategy. And in this day and age when a lot of our really wonderful, excited entrepreneurs have perhaps been watching Shark Tank, you'll see that they often ask, well, what's your exit strategy? How am I going to get my money out? And that's the sort of thing that I talk to a lot of business owners about these days, because the most important investor in the business really is you when you're starting up. So you've got to figure out, what's my end game here? And so my plan at the time with that business was that we would grow the business and sell it off to an international group somewhere, or try to anyway, somewhere between the 5 and the 10-year mark. And surprise, surprise, it happened. So everything, the beginning and the end, worked out just as we'd thought about it. Everything in the middle, of course, was up and down, up and down, up and down. And all through those periods, we had what did we have? The Black Monday, when the stock market crashed, and then we had the huge run up at the end of the 80s, and then we had the Banana Republic and the recession we had to have with Paul Keating. You name it, we had it. So all through that period. Anyway, as I said, the beginning and the end worked out. And so I was really didn't even think twice that anyone else didn't know about having an end game, having an exit strategy. So, I knew I didn't want that business for the rest of my life. So that was the plan. And then following that, I started a business coaching business, which in the late 1990s was never heard of. It was not even in our language, business coaching, at all, which I did do for another 9 years. And simultaneously, my husband and I, we were also involved with a real estate business, residential real estate and property management, which was part of a very large franchise called Hocking Stewart. A lot of people listening to this may know that brand. And so we also were ready, and this is what I talk to a lot of people about today as well, is that every business, as you're growing it, needs to be ready for sale. Whether or not that is your plan, it just doesn't matter. Because if you have a business that's ready for sale, then when an opportunity comes along, you're there and ready to be able to take it, just like Kerry Packer did when he sold Channel 9 to Alan Bond, for $1 billion. So, and you never know when that opportunity might come along in your life. You never know when that Alan Bond might come along. And I have to say, we had that happen to us in 2007. We had the Alan Bond come along in our life and made us an offer too good to refuse. So we sold the real estate business then as well. So all along, I think it's really important for anybody that's in business, no matter whether you're starting up, no matter whether you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s, but particularly if you are getting a little bit older, that it is really important to think about what the end game is for your business, and having your business ready so it's transferable. So what is an exit plan? So an exit plan's all around having your business ready, which is what I was talking about before. Growing for value, not necessarily simply profits. Obviously, profit's part of that, but actually growing for value. So business readiness, financial readiness, and personal readiness, plus your stakeholders and your family. So there's quite a lot involved in actually getting those things balanced. So it's like 3 legs of the stool. So make sure that they're all balanced, because if one is not balanced, it's going to topple over. And, some of the stories that with, people that I've worked with over the last, it's now about, where are we? 2024. It's 12, 14 years now that I've been on a one-person mission almost to talk about exit strategies, that so many people have really not thought about it until it's right when they want to retire. Baby boomers especially. I mean, we have this huge wave of baby boomers coming through now who frankly have owned half of the private businesses in Australia have been owned by baby boomers. So when you think about that, that's it's an opportunity for people who want to grow their business to be able to perhaps buy a business that's been owned by a baby boomer and be able to get the knowledge and all the hard work. You know what it's like when you're starting a business. It is hard work, let's face it. And if you can buy a business that has existing cash flow and integrate that into yours, you can actually get more than a simple step up in terms of your growth. You can actually get a giant piece of exponential growth there and then. So 2 sides of it, as I see it: opportunity to be able to acquire some really good businesses out there, and at the same time help people who are at that stage of their lives where they want to be able to move on. So you can engage with them, use their knowledge, and work out a way to be able to keep them engaged as well while they exit out of the business. So one of the most important things on the personal side is to figure out what you're going to do after you've exited your business. So I'm in what I call now my 6th reinvention. So, having retired for the first time when I sold that freight business back in 1996, I did retire. I retired for 2 weeks because it was boring.
Yep.
It was very, very boring. And that's when I started the business coaching business. And I also took myself off to university and did a master's degree in entrepreneurship and innovation, which was great fun. I did it part-time. And it was fun because I'd already been in business 30 years at that point, so, and I left school when I was 15. So I'm one of those, learned by experience, working alongside some really terrific people who shared their talents and helped me educate myself, and doing a whole lot of short courses and all that sort of stuff. So going to university for me was such a privilege after I actually retired for the first time. So And then after I finished the degree, they got me on the other side teaching it, which was also fun for a few years, but just doing it part-time. But yeah, I think the most important thing, where was I going with this, that understand who you're going to be, what you're going to do after you may have exited your business. So let's say, I mean, whatever the exit might be, whether it's a succession to family, I mean, you might have, you might sell it, you might have, particularly if you're in the tech industry, you know, there's the holy grail. If you can get a SaaS business that actually generates recurring revenue for you, then, you know, that is terrific. That is fantastic because it's very predictable. If you are family, you might have family that you're going to succeed to, depending on the type of business you might have. I mean, it could be that you've built a great business, it's created some fantastic income for you and profits, you've done the right thing over the years and diversified your wealth base, and so you have other forms of future income. And it might be that the physical assets of the business is actually worth more than any opportunity to sell it for goodwill. So that's okay. You know, you just sort of liquidate it. I mean, all of these, there's many ways to be able to exit a business. So the most important part of it is just simply thinking about the end game. And on the where I was going with that was to think about who you are once you've left your business, because a lot of people's identity is actually tied to their business. And so once you no longer have that, and particularly men, I have to say, it's an ego thing, you know, but it's your identity. And so it is a matter of, well, who are you when you are no longer your business? And so it's about creating a purpose, because a life without purpose is no life. So you might be a mentor, you might do a whole lot of volunteer work. You can certainly, I mean, I think people should certainly decompress and reward themselves, you know, whenever they've particularly had a great event like that. And family. If you're married, it might be that you've got a spouse at home who says, I married you for better or worse, but not for lunch, you know. So what are you going to do, you know? You could have, I just use myself as a demonstration. I'm also a serial volunteer. So with our kids, as they were growing up, we were heavily involved with our local community sports club, and with footy and cricket, and unfortunately with my daughter there was no women's football back then, so but she helped me and we did a lot of the canteen work. And you know, I'm still there. I still run the Cricket Blast program, and you know, we have about 100 kids turn up on a Saturday morning. I still run that program. It's 29 years I've been doing it now, and you know, I really enjoy it. I love doing it. Kids are long gone, of course. No grandchildren, just a grand dog at the moment. We'll wait and see. But, you know, these are the sorts of things that I talk about. And obviously financial, making sure that you are set up. How much do you need to be able to live on when you no longer have the cash flow from your business? So I spend a lot of time being able to, work. I've got some really smart little spreadsheets that help us to work through that, to figure it out and maintain the lifestyle that you've enjoyed, you know, while you have had your business. So, I mean, that's just sort of one element of the financial side of it as well. And thinking about stakeholders, I think with the freight business that I had back in the 80s and 90s, when I sold it, one of the most important things to me was that everybody had a job. So for me, the staff were really important back then. I was very happy for me to be out of a job, which I was, you know, but I wanted everyone else to make sure that everyone had a job. So that was really a primary consideration. And so that's thinking about that sort of issue as well, whether that's of any concern to you or not. And, you know, the other things around your own personal estate planning, do you have all that in place? I mean, the fundamentals are will, but, what sort of will? How long has it been, since you looked at it? What else are you providing for in all of that? What's the structures that exist? A lot of people run trusts, and how do they affect the way the business is set up? Do you have to look at do you have to actually restructure the way your businesses are set up in order to make them attractive enough for sale? And so one of the other things that I touched on was the building the business for value. And what do we need to do that? Then there are eight key drivers that I go through with people if they like to have a look at it. And that is first of all, fundamentally, you have to have your financials in good shape and be able to draw on at least 3 years of those financials to be able to demonstrate how good your business is. Secondly, are you in a growth market? Is there enough room? Don't ride the business over the top. Don't think, I'll just be there another couple of years. Leave something in it for the next person.
Yeah, don't sell it without opportunity there.
Correct, exactly. Make sure there's some opportunity for the next one. Let's have a look at your reliance. Are you relying on anybody, key staff, key suppliers, customers? Do you have any sort of concentration of reliance at all within the business? And so looking at how to make sure that you've mitigated that reliance. What's your marketing like? Do you stand out from the crowd? Can you differentiate what you're doing? I mean, famously, Warren Buffett's known for saying, I only buy businesses that have got a big, wide moat around them. So he wants them where they're in a market which is an inch wide and a mile deep. So, how well are you differentiating your own business? What's your cash flow like? Do you consume cash? What's your cycle like? Or do you throw off cash so that you have a really good positive cash flow business? So there are colloquially, two checks that someone who's buying the business will write. One is to pay you for the business. The other one is working capital. How much working capital do I need to put into this business? How much do I need to make it work? So depending on your cash flow cycle, that's really important to see whether or not you're positive or lagging in terms of your cash flow. Customer satisfaction. How good's that? How do you measure it? Can you prove it? I talk to so many people who say, oh yeah, we've got, customers love us. We've got, really good results, but they don't have any surveys. They have Google reviews, which are important too. Agreed. Absolutely agreed. Yeah. But they don't have any other surveys, to be able to demonstrate. And because some businesses don't actually go to, like Google reviews aren't necessarily relevant for them,
Yep.
So you've got to be able to prove that you have really good customer retention, really good maybe a net promoter score. If doing NPS is a good way of doing that as well, because it's something that's universally recognised, Yeah,
the Google reviews do give you a little bit of a highlight at least to see whether it's improving or declining, especially the recent reviews. At least that'll give you, all right, if the person is looking to sell, have they sort of like ignored the business for the past 3-6 months and the ratings are coming down or whatever it may be? Correct.
That's right. And look, it just depends on the type of business too.
Yeah, of course.
Very much so. And then of course whether or not you have any reliance on you as the owner, because if you are the key person in the business, you haven't got anything to sell. You've got to get yourself off the organisation chart. It can't be a you business. So being able, being able to look at each of those value areas and figure out where you actually sit. So, Anthony, you talk for a sec while I take a drink of water.
Not a problem. So there's quite a lot there to think about as for like exit planning. When we work with a lot of startups and some established businesses, The corporate enterprise, no idea what they do or what they're planning. We don't get involved in any of those conversations. Yes. Smaller businesses do sort of disclose that with us. But the startups, a lot of the startups do focus on, all right, an exit. That's the point. They think, all right, SaaS product, consistent revenue, 5-10x multiple. That's my target. But I don't think they do any planning around anything else that you've discussed or touched on those points. They just think, all right, I'll get bought out by X at this point for this amount of money. This is what I'm aiming for. But I don't think they put plans together and figure out how they're going to get to that. And then with the small businesses, I think a lot of it is reliant on the owner. That's what my experience has shown. It's always, the owner is the linchpin to everything. So unless there are systems and businesses in place, they're not buying. No one's going to want to buy that business, because if you get taken out of it, it's just going to fall apart, really. Correct.
That's absolutely right. So those are really key drivers in terms of the actual business. And then if that's your end game, if you've thought about it, okay, I'm a SaaS business and I'm going to be X multiple and someone's going to buy me. Well, who are they? Who do you identify that you might want to target to actually buy you? Have you thought about that? And then get to know them so that they might be your best customer ever. Go through the process to think about who might it be? Who are you going to target to build your business to become attractive to? And if you can go about that with that end in mind, you will get there. It's pretty much, it's going to happen. The universe provides.
You're making decisions that push you towards that direction. Otherwise, you're just making decisions that suit you now, not suit you in the future potentially, which is going to be a problem to avoid.
Exactly. And of course, when you're a startup, you get pulled in so many millions of different directions. It's really important to have that end game in mind and start ticking off all of those areas that I talked about, getting your systems and processes sorted, making sure everybody's going in the same direction, make sure that you've got your business accountability chart set up properly so that you know what functions have to be filled. You might be filling a lot of them at this moment, but at least you know where your growth path is, from that perspective. And looking after your money. I mean, the most important, when you grow, there's a temptation to spend everything. Okay.
Yep.
But you actually have to pay yourself first. It's really important that you make that distinction, pay yourself first and then grow from there. Because if you're not doing that now, as you grow, you're not going to create future wealth that you actually want. If you're only relying on a very big end game in terms of somebody comes along and acquires me for whatever multiple of revenue, then, that I'd like to have some more insurance around that. Quite frankly, and the more structured, the more you think about that, and the more that you have a proper roadmap in place, then the more likely it is to be able to happen. Because things come along, though. We've just been through an awful period of COVID. Hopefully there won't be another pandemic in our lifetime, but that's galvanized a lot of people into action, particularly baby boomers and people in their 50s, around thinking around, well, hang on, this is not what, my business isn't the be all and end all. This has got to serve me for something else as well. And so people have been galvanized into doing something more structured around the ultimate exit that they're looking for. So all of those things are really important. Yeah.
So with, say, as a startup who's just about to get rolling their business off the ground and moving forward, they have to, again, plan sort of like that hierarchy, understand, all right, they may be multiple hats at the moment, but they have to then replace those over time.
Yep.
And if they're looking at, say, the acquiring company of X, if they're trying to turn them into their customer so then they can get acquired, how would you say they should balance the broader customer needs with trying to get known by that company that they want to acquire?
Well, you'll have a time frame, clearly. I mean, it's not going to be tomorrow.
Of course.
So it could be that you get to know their key people, get to know how they operate, that particular business operates, and you would probably find them at various networking events. It's basically rubbing shoulders, rubbing shoulders as time goes on. That's the way I would go about it. Anyway, I'd be quite deliberate, but not just one. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, because it may not happen. So have a list of maybe 5 to 10 potential future targets, and start to nurture the relationship. It's really around relationships. Nurture the relationship with those people so that they know that you're there. So if you don't, you can't hide yourself under a bushel. It's out there. Be out there. Start nurturing the relationships, because they might be. You never know who they might be. You never know when they might come along. Yeah.
Yep. Of course. Yeah. Things happen in the course of business.
They do.
And then, with that path to exit, you mentioned at the start, you'll have investors who have put money in potentially, and then that sale or the exit or another capital raise is a way for them to get their money out.
Yes.
Having that in mind with how you have to set up your business or structure your business in the early days. If you think you're going to have an exit and you're going to pull in investors, you probably have a different structure as opposed to you running the business and bootstrapping it to grow.
Correct.
Any advice on sort of that level, or it's a bit hard to say without knowing what the business is or what the aim are?
What I would say is get the right advice more than anything. I would say if you are, if you've thought about it and your end game is to ultimately sell the business or your capital raising, you've got external investors, you're going to have a particular structure. So make sure you get the right advice around that, both legal and accounting. So, there are many people who will just they'll set up a discretionary trust, and then they'll put a company underneath it, and then they'll put another one over here and there, and it's like a dog's breakfast. Okay, that's not the way to go about it. It will cost you more money at the beginning, clearly, to be able to make sure that you get the right advice. You've got to pay for it. It's not going to come for free, generally speaking. But that's well worth the investment, because then you'll have the right structure in place. I have a recent client who was approached by they're a SaaS business, and they're approached by a Canadian private equity firm. The biggest stumbling block was the way the business was structured.
Okay.
Because it was that trust arrangement and, other little bits and pieces had been tacked on. That was the biggest stumbling block, because they just couldn't see a way of undoing it without causing a lot of issues, with having to redo contracts with clients and all that sort of thing. So,
okay. Yeah, so it can affect a potential purchase then, having the wrong structures, because it can then cost you X amount of dollars to then restructure, or like you said, then you'll have contracts that'll be voided and have to be reissued and new problems.
Correct. And, restructuring costs a lot of money. It also could create tax events and things like that as well.
Yep. So then it might not be worth it in the long term. Correct. And then that's why they avoid the sale potentially. Yeah,
exactly. It's just all too hard. Becomes too hard. So, having set up, invest the money at the original setup. If that's where you want to go down the track, make sure that you do get your structures right, and you're in a position where you could carve something like that off without it actually affecting the overall structure of your personal situation. Yeah.
And then that also probably is important to think about as looking to get investment, not just for the sale, because then you have to protect yourself in that scenario there as well, and have ownership and control.
You do. That's right. And depending on who it is that may be investing, I mean, if it's when you're starting out, it's the 3 Fs, fools, family and friends.
Yep.
So they're probably not going to worry about it too much at that. But once you have somebody who may be like private equity or professional investor coming along, they're definitely going to scrutinise that arrangement. Yeah, that's for sure.
And it's like I said, it's just knowing that end game in mind when you start. Don't just go to the ABN website, register an ABN, and start something. It's have a direction and a goal in mind, which is what I think most people probably wouldn't have when they start. It's just, I'll build something, I'll get an exit.
Yep.
I'll be the next Facebook is how we tend to term it with most people.
Yep, exactly. Yep. That's right. And, they're few and far between. let's face
Yeah,
it.
of course. It doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen to everyone.
No, that's what I always tell people. Yeah, I was an overnight success. It only took me 15 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my I think my
Yeah.
favorite quote from Lionel Messi, the soccer player, when he
Yes.
signed up to Barcelona, he was 17, and they called him an overnight success, and he's like, yeah, it was 16 years of hard work
Yeah.
overnight.
That's right. And all the ups and downs in between. Yeah.
Of course, yeah. So is there any sort of key differences, so if you're a startup as opposed to sort of an established business, or like a small business that's running, that most people may term boring and just is not how they see the potential of what a SaaS business can do, that with sort of the structures and how you would exit? Or is it still same opportunity? There's someone's buying you to bring you into their business, or they're just buying another cash flow operating or another revenue source?
Probably one of the main differences could be the way the businesses are valued. SaaS businesses are often valued through revenue, whereas traditional type businesses are usually valued on their EBIT, like earnings before interest and tax, so or EBITDA. And the multiple therefore will change. It's really that's where we talk about understanding the difference between value and just profit, because building a business for value will improve your multiple. It could double your multiple. And even in the case of SaaS businesses, just the same, it could double your multiple as opposed to being a pedestrian number or, just one for one even.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then that's where it's important to understand the room in the market to grow that you said, and not right at the top. It's allow opportunity for the next person to buy it.
Yeah.
Because they're buying it for the opportunity that's coming. They'll say, all right, if we buy your SaaS business for 10x, then we're expecting 20, 30x growth in that business or to get their money back. Otherwise, why would anyone buy it?
Correct. And where are the risks? So that's where we talk about things like, customer concentration, people concentration. Do you know all your numbers? What's your cost of acquisition? Do you know all of those figures? You've got to really know and understand what your business is. Do you know what the lifetime value is of your client? Knowing all of those elements, because these are all risks that any future acquirer may look at and discount your value for.
Yep.
Every single risk carries a discount. So, and so
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so any future buyer is going to look at it and say, well, there's no guarantees, but what's the risk? What risk am I actually buying into here? How risky is it for me to put my money into this business now to buy, either as an investor?
Yes, every decision you make has that like a dollar figure attached to it, which is
It does.
a revenue figure, but then it's also a discount on the sale price that it may incur,
Yep.
or
exactly.
a multiple if it's a recurring revenue business or whatever it may be.
Yeah, absolutely right. So so looking at it from the buyer's perspective, put the buyer's glasses on, look at your business from that perspective and say, what have I got to do to minimize those risks as much as I can? Yeah.
And then probably one last question before we go, I'll just ask is, if you do have, say, not a SaaS business, because they're by definition typically recurring revenue, if you have a small business, would you sort of advise to go from once-off or per fee based work to try and turn it into a recurring revenue business with a subscription or a recurring service?
Some sort of recurring part of the business. Even I talk to tradespeople all the time. I never, for the life of me, understand why, even if you're a tradesperson, why you don't have a maintenance arrangement with something that you're doing. Some element of recurring revenue. So, I mean, it won't be the whole business, but it would be, maybe you can have 25% of your revenue, or, you've got contracts that you're going to have maintenance over a period of time. Absolutely. And there's a lot of different ways that you can create, recurring revenue, automated revenue. Some great examples out there. Dollar Shaver Club. How's that? That's a good one. You know about that one? I mean,
they send you the razors every month.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. I mean, I buy dog food that gets sent to me every month. You sign up for it. So, subscriptions is one way, special surprise boxes or that sort of thing. Like there's so many different ways. And there's a great book by John Warrilow. It's called The Automatic Customer. And in it, he describes 9 different ways of creating recurring revenue, no matter what type of business that you have. Yeah. He also wrote Built to Sell as well, which is a fantastic little book. Yeah.
Yeah, and that subscription revenue or that recurring revenue is probably one of the bigger drivers in getting a larger multiple, I'm assuming.
It is, absolutely.
That's the value.
That's one of them.
Yeah, okay.
It's one, okay. It's not alone. It's not alone. You really need to look at all of those different value drivers that I spoke about earlier. So, and you know what? If anybody wants to get wants to see how they score on any of those value drivers, you might want to put it in the notes afterwards. There's a link on my website. There's no charge for it at all. You can actually just do a little questionnaire. It takes about 15 minutes. It's high level, but it shows you how you score on those.
Okay. Yeah, we'll include that link for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Kerry, it's been a pleasure to chat to you, and there's plenty to think about and take away from this episode. If anyone wants to reach out, how can they do that?
Oh, look, best thing is probably you can hit me up on LinkedIn or go to my website, which is theexitstrategygroup.com.au, and you'll find contact details in there. Emails kerry@theexitstrategygroup.com.au. It's easy. Yep. I'm easy to find. Yes.
Well, that always makes it helpful for people. And
just Google me. Yes, just Google me. It's a Bolton with a Boulton. That's the trick. Yes.
We'll add those details to the show notes as well. And once again, Kerry, thank you for that. And
it's a real pleasure. Thanks, Anthony.